Okay, my official organization faff is done, out the way. I can now introduce our first speaker of the day. So, he has spent a decade as a high-powered litigator in Montreal before realizing the real battle wasn't necessarily in the courtroom, it was online. He traded his legal robes for a live stream camera, he ran for office, and he eventually fled the Great White North for the free state of Florida to become one of the biggest voices on Rumble. He is living proof that you can exit the system and build something bigger on the outside. Here to tell us how we went from counsel to content, please welcome to the stage, Viva Frei! More noise, guys, more noise! Woo!
Don't worry, it's early. Good morning, everybody. This is quite amazing. I'll tell you, never in a million years would I ever think I'd be in San Salvador, El Salvador, for reasons which anyone who lives in El Salvador knows. When I grew up, it was not a place that you'd even dream of visiting. And it goes to show you that under proper governance and good governance, crime is not something that is inevitable and to be tolerated. It's something that can actually be governed when governed properly out of a system to the benefit of everybody. Now, and I'll come back to this by the end. If you don't know who I am, I wouldn't say I was a high-powered litigator. I had 13 years experience in litigation. You might not know that by looking at me right now, but I used to be normal. I used to be in the system on the rails, and then the world is what it is, and it sort of, I want to say it pushed me off the rails because I had no intention of ever being where I am right now, but by the grace of God, I am, and it's been a wonderful journey. Youngest of 5 kids, family of lawyers, father's a lawyer, 4 of the 5 kids, with the exception of the oldest, is a lawyer, and I was on the narrow track of life as a lawyer and felt a little disenfranchised with it, disillusioned, discovered the internet, but it was only around 2017, 2018 that I discovered the censorship on what I now humorously refer to as CommieTube, because you don't want to advertise your rivals and you also don't want to dignify them when they behave like communists. Censorship on CommieTube, both soft and hard. Hard censorship, yeeting people off the platform for speaking politically unfavorable truths. And then the soft censorship, which is even more insidious, demonetization, making it hard for people to earn the living that they expected to earn based on warranties and representations of the platform. My red pill started slowly when Donald Trump ran for president first in 2016, and then we all sort of got exposed to the lies, the propaganda, the disinformation coming out of mainstream media. And then, like I say, when I was exploring on CommieTube and building a channel there, there was a day where, does everybody know who Alex Jones is here? If you don't know who Alex Jones is, there's a shirt, there's a meme, Alex Jones was right, because, by and large, Alex Jones, commonly referred to as a conspiracy theorist, whatever the heck that means these days, they've been more right than wrong compared to those who call them the derogatory term conspiracy theorists. He was a conspiracy theorist. He got into some legal trouble, which we now know was not entirely organic as relates to events that occurred at Sandy Hook way back when. I, being a lawyer, discovering my ikigai on the interwebs, one day sat on the roof of my house and did a legal breakdown of his deposition in the context of that lawsuit. And it was nothing more than me, cringy as anything, wearing sunglasses, looking at a camera, breaking down a deposition to say what the lawyer was doing right, wrong, how it went, because the media told us the deposition made Alex look like a crazy man, and I watched that 3.5-hour deposition and realized the media was lying, and I put out an analysis explaining exactly why. It started gaining traction on CommieTube, and then all of a sudden, demonetized the video. And I had no idea why. Then it was removed from the platform, and the reason given was violating the terms of service for hate speech. And at the time, I said, this is borderline defamatory. Nothing in that video, either from my commentary or from the video itself, was hate speech. And I fought it, and I gave up eventually. And eventually, it actually came back on the platform, was monetized, and the strike was removed. But that exposed the inherent flaws of a politicized corporation. Somewhere along the line, I had discovered Rumble as well, but only truly appreciated what Rumble had to offer. Come COVID time, it became much more apparent. Everyone here lived through COVID. to various degrees depending on where you were under various forms of government oppression, government tyranny. And I was up in commie Canada. I use the word commie to describe things and people I don't typically like. So I was up in Canada. And I was in Quebec, in Montreal, more specifically. And for those of you who don't know, Quebec, Ontario, were among the most locked down, most brutalized people on earth. We were under curfew. I mean, some of you may not know this. In Quebec, we had a curfew that lasted 5.5 months, where despite any scientific reason, because there was none, we were told we could not leave our houses between 8 at night or 9 at night and 5 or 6 in the morning. And I remember distinct memories where I remember saying, I got to get the hell out of here. My wife, who's a neuroscientist, had to go do research. She literally needed to leave the house with papers. And she's like, I'm going to work, I'm driving, I've got my papers in the glove compartment of the car, and I'm like, this is not normal. And, we can only put up with this for so long. Without getting too far into the story behind everything, I ended up trying to run. I ran for office for the People's Party of Canada in the most liberal district in all of Canada, one of. Lost, and I said, well, I've run for Canada, and now, if you want to call it that, I'm going to run from Canada, because this is not a place where you can raise 3 kids. This was at the time of a vaccine passport during COVID, and again, fortuitous connections. I got an exclusive deal with Rumble, ended up being able to move to the free state of Florida, and that's how we got here now. Rumble as an entity. And I don't say this because I'm with Rumble because this is true. Chris Pavlovski, as far as a CEO, as far as a human goes, is among the most principled, trustworthy people on earth. And you realize, in the practice of law, you get to learn quick. A corporation is only as strong as the weakest link, and it's certainly no stronger than its strongest link. And when you deal with corporations like CommieTube, and you deal with platforms like X or Twitter at the time, and you realize that despite how big and reputable the corporation, if decisions are made internally that shut off the voices of the people on those platforms are never going to be any better than the people making those decisions. Chris has been the most trustworthy, the most principled CEO, the most interactive, the most involved CEO I've ever met. I haven't met all that many. I've never met Elon, but he retweeted me a couple of times. And when you see someone like Chris, who started something like Rumble, and himself also was, I don't know if he would have ever guessed this would have been his direction in life. When Rumble started, it was kitty cat videos, viral videos. If you go on Rumble, one of the videos that I posted in 2014 is one of the most viral videos on the platform. It's me ducking under a swing when my daughter is on the swing, and it was funny, haha. At the time, nobody knew where the world was going to go. At the time, Chris had no idea he would be the above the target, receiving the flack for what he was doing, which was doing nothing more than providing a platform that had no algorithmic suppression and that had no political suppression. And when you understand the path of Rumble and now who they have partnered with in Tether, and the innovation that they are involved in with respect to content creation, creator freedom, and now creator financial freedom, and financial freedom for everybody else, you understand that this is, not the man defining the times, but the times defining the man. Rumble now, as many of you know, put up a Rumble wallet. Now you can invest in crypto, you can tip your content creators, your favorite creators in crypto, and it's an amazing thing, if only from one perspective, from revolutionizing and expanding how a content creator can make a living doing what they're doing without having to worry about the proverbial censorship ban hammer coming down from unpredictable platforms like CommieTube, everywhere else. This is now the second crypto conference that I've actually gotten to attend. I was in Lugano, and again, never in a million years, 10 years ago, would I have imagined I would be, let alone in Lugano at a Bitcoin conference, because I admit I understood very little of cryptocurrencies back in the day, and even less about Bitcoin. Never thought I'd be here, but this is where we are. And the crypto zeitgeist, which I've now very much come to appreciate. And I appreciate one thing that I've learned from these conferences, whether or not you understand crypto, I now understand, and I may be wrong, but I don't think I am, that there's something uniquely innovative and uniquely distinct about Bitcoin versus all the other coins, which I won't use the colloquial term to describe them. I said I wouldn't swear. They call them poo-poo coins is the polite term. But so now I think I understand the innovation, the uniqueness, that you could not have another Bitcoin the way this Bitcoin has arose, because this Bitcoin grew out of conditions that themselves will never be able to be replicated, because you've sort of got the attention of the governments who don't like this decentralized element of Bitcoin, and so they would never allow the soil to be fertile to breed this element of independent, decentralized crypto digital currency ever again. So that's my understanding why I think Bitcoin is distinctly unique. What I've picked up from these conferences, and it's something that we all really appreciate or need to appreciate, is the need to be decentralized from the government. It's the need to be free from government tyranny on the one hand in the literal sense, but from, I call it, Karen micromanagement of an administrative state run amok. I'm from Canada, and it's among the most Karen of nanny states on earth. The government thinks it knows better than everybody out there. I'm sorry, I don't mean to poop on Canada. You get the government you elect, and the problem is so does everybody else. It is the most micromanaging Karen administrative nanny state imaginable. And if you thought it was bad when they were, trying to censor so-called hate speech, and then you thought it was bad when they were trying to tell you what you can do with your kids, telling you that the government knows better for your children than parents. And then you thought the Online Streaming Act was a problem, where they decided to, they're going to demote algorithmically, they're going to allow access or deny it to news outlets, news sources, whatever. You try to go get some American news outlets up in Canada on Instagram, it tells you it's blocked, because they don't want you knowing it. They know better. Go to the CBC, that's the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, or as I call them, the Commie Broadcasting Corporation. State-funded. They'll tell you what to think, they'll tell you what you know, and that's why Canadian people, as far as I'm concerned, are the most propagandized people in Western civilization, and they don't really even know it. They look at me and say, I'm the crazy one, and I look at them and I say, no, you are all the crazy ones, or at least the brainwashed ones, and you don't even know it. And so, you want to talk about a nanny state, administrative state, telling you what you can do, think, what you have to put into your body, how much you can spend. The new bill coming out of Canada, which is, it seeks to allow the government to literally open your mail, something you'd expect in North Korea, to access your digital devices, something you'd expect in North Korea, and then you understand, and to limit financial transactions, to illegalize, criminalize cash transactions over $10,000. And not that Canada's much worse than the States, or at least it was not much worse than the States under Biden, where they were talking about tracing, tracking, requiring disclosures or reporting on transactions of $600 or more on PayPal, things like that. It's a government that wants to have control over your money. And why? So that they can, like the Canadian government did, shut it off when they don't like what you're doing. And you don't have to publicly execute a person anymore in order for the government to effectively kill somebody. It used to be reputational assassination, and then it became financial assassination. If the government doesn't like what you're doing, they don't need to make a North Korean show out of it. They can do it quietly behind closed doors, censor you, shut down your social media accounts, and freeze your bank accounts, just like the Canadian government did during the trucker protest. And I should give a little context, because every now and again I presume everybody has the experience that some of us lived through directly. You all remember the magnificent, glorious Ottawa trucker protest out of Canada. And I didn't look quite the same back then. I was the same height, but I didn't look the same. I was on the streets, documenting this day in and day out, and it was a thing of beauty. And then you realize that the government, overnight, by emergency decree, can basically say, we freeze your bank accounts. We'll starve you to death. We'll cancel your car insurance. We will unemploy you to death. And these are the realities that we all have to face, depending on the country that you're in, or the realities that you have to oppose, depending on where you're at. And this is kind of where Rumble, the Rumble wallet, the ability to make you uncancelable, both from a content exposure perspective and from a financial economic perspective. When, Rumble's had a number of innovative things, and it's amazing. And I'm not saying this because I'm with them because it's true. Rumble has been ahead of the curve, both in terms of principles, politics, and innovation. And they've been fighting forces that you can only imagine. Some of you might already know, but Nuhu Ribadu, I think he was I want to say Ethiopian politician, and it's a quote that I use often because it's beautiful. When you fight corruption, corruption fights back. Chris didn't choose this path, Rumble didn't choose this path, but they were forced into it because when you present an option that pisses off the forces, they will bite back. And the expression, you take flak when you're over the target, it's a cliche. But if you're irrelevant, people don't fight with you. If you're irrelevant, people don't demonize you. And if you're irrelevant, people don't try to cancel you the way they've tried to cancel Rumble, demonize Rumble, Communist Broadcasting Corporation, Canadian media, trying to demonize a Canadian company. And Chris has been forced into the battle of the battle of the ages. And now he's partnering up with people who are empowering this corporate entity for the battle of the ages. And so the wallet, the wallet is a feature. It's a feature that you download the Rumble wallet, go to the Android app or wherever you get it's Rumble wallet, and you can invest at your own risk and peril. This is not financial advice. We also, I presume everybody was following the markets yesterday. And anybody who held silver knew what happened yesterday, although it's great, silver dropped 35% yesterday, but that's only after a 300% increase over a few months. So media likes to report doom and gloom, but there's always a correction in people taking their profits and running. The ability to store crypto that cannot be frozen by the government, that cannot be seized, that cannot be, I say, tracked, not for nefarious purposes, because we saw out of Canada, it didn't have to be nefarious purposes that authorized or empowered a government to literally freeze bank accounts. This is what Rumble is offering right now. This is part of the Rumble revolution, which is sort of the hashtag I like, the Rumble takeover, which is the hashtag that is the hashtag. This is what they're offering. Partnering up with Tether and empowering people to have their voice be uncancelable, their finances be uncancelable, and to transact in cryptocurrency. And it brings us all the way right back to the beginning. Never in a million years would I ever have thought I'd be in San Salvador, El Salvador. I'm a mildly neurotic person. It's the joke of our community. I'm intensely neurotic. Whenever I go anywhere, the first thing I ever look up is intentional homicide rates. Cities, like when we drive from Montreal to Florida, and before deciding what hotel to stay at, I look at the intentional homicide rate of the city or area in which we're going to rent a hotel. I'm not joking, by the way. It sounds crazy, and it is. El Salvador, we know what it was. 15 years ago in my lifetime, the intentional homicide rate was over 100 per 100,000. That was, I think it was the highest in the world at the time. Now it's at 1.9 per 100,000. It's beyond what you could predict is possible. That's the amazing thing. In America, you sort of brainwashed, or at least some of the Democrats, I'm not trying to get political, it just happens to be the tendency, say stupid things. And they say, big cities have crime, as though there are not big cities on earth where you can see that that is not empirically a necessary reality. And El Salvador, under the current government, has shown crime is not an inevitable necessity. It's a political choice to tolerate. And other things that are political choices to tolerate are empowering your citizens to live free from potential government unilateral cancellation. And the idea, I got down to El Salvador, I do some research, watch some documentaries, and you realize that the currency of El Salvador is the American dollar and Bitcoin. that's flipping cool. And the doom and gloom say, oh, there's going to be all sorts of bad things. You know, if the government can't track your money, how do they know that you're not going to spend it on bad things? As if the government doesn't take our money and spend it on bad things. I'm going to trust the government to be more moral than me over my body, over my living body, hopefully. So it is the idea that El Salvador is showing to the world, A, crime is not a necessity, it's a political decision. Allowing citizens to have full control over their money is not a liability, it's an asset. Pun intended. And Rumble, partnering with Tether, partnering with, enabling the crypto aspect of the platform, it enables not only the freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, and freedom of finances. Now, what the future holds is going to be another story. We're living through it in real time. The successes in some countries are not necessarily reflected in other countries, and there are very, very powerful forces. Some might even say global forces, or if you're Alex Jones, globalist forces. And he's right. There are globalist forces that do not want this to happen at a nation-state level, or certainly even more so at the individual level. I mean, and that's the real war, the real battle that Rumble is involved in right now. An economic battle, an ideological battle, and a battle for providing freedom to the people to not live under the thumb of a tyrannical and, I would say sometimes, and more often than not, capricious government. So we're going to see. That's it. It's one heck of a journey to be on. The Rumble innovations are amazing. The platform is amazing, and I think it's starting to lead by example, where now you have the other commie corporations sort of following the lead. I said back in the day, we're going to get to a point where free speech and freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, it's not just going to be cool again, it's going to be profitable again, and you're going to get these corporations that have been benefiting from the censorship because there was no alternative, having to change the tide, because at the end of the day, one thing you can be sure of is corporations do chase the bottom line, and they will change tact if it becomes profitable to do so. And so right now we're at a point where Rumble is not only leading in terms of innovation, it's leading in terms of influence. And it is an honor to be part of this journey. And it's the Chinese proverb, may you live in interesting times. We certainly are. But I was once told that that was actually a curse and not an observation. May you live in interesting times. But I'll take it as the optimistic one. We are living in interesting times, and I am very excited to see where they go. By the way, I also forgot to mention, my name is not Viva Frei, it's David Freiheit. That might disappoint some of you, but I'll be live on the other platform, I think, this afternoon. And I'm on Rumble daily, 3 o'clock. Viva Frei is the random internet name I chose. My last name, Freiheit, is verbatim freedom in German, which is, it used to be Freiheiter with an ER, which was freedom fighter, but my granddad fled Poland. And I don't know if he dropped the ER because he didn't fight for freedom, he fled for freedom. But either way, it's a good last name, and I'm very proud of it, and I'm proud to be part of this Rumble team. It's fantastic. Everybody, check it out later on this afternoon, and if you have any questions, I will be walking around for the better part of the day. Godspeed. God bless.